Hello, welcome to Link webinar number 4. This one is going to talk about how to run a scan. And as always, we start with this very important message. Link does not identify, diagnose, or treat any disease or medical condition. In this webinar, we're going to focus on what is a remote scan, what is a local scan, how to run a scan, how to schedule a recurring scan, and more. And by more, I mean your remote signup link, which is another way that you can scan people. So we're going to go over everything right here. So let's go ahead and start by defining what these are. And we're going to start with remote scan. Remote scan, in short, is basically a scan where you send a scan to your client and your client downloads the app in their phone and they run the scan using their own phone. So with a remote scan, first, you create a client profile in your app for the person that you want to scan. Second, you send a scan to your client. Third, your client receives an email with instructions. Fourth, your client creates login information and downloads the app. 5, your client runs the scan with their own phone. And 6, both you and your client can see the results in your own separate individual phones. So that's a quick definition of what a remote scan is. Now, this is the most popular option. People are sending scans worldwide. You're able to scan anyone on the planet that has a compatible smartphone or iPad. So this is a game changer because you're no longer limited to working just with people that live close to you. The other option is called local scan, and here's the definition. A local scan, in short, is basically a scan where you create the profile for your client in your own phone, and then you hand your phone over to your client, and your client runs the scan using your phone. So that's called local scan. So here's the steps. Local scan. First, you create a client profile in your app for the person you want to scan. Second, you scan your client with your phone. Third, the results appear on your app. And fourth, you can email the report to your client. Now, the email feature is something that we recently added. So we are working on improving the PDF report. So right now it's a super basic version of the report. Keep that in mind. But you can always take screenshots and text them or email them if there are specific parts of the report that are not showing up on the PDF that you want to share with them. And instances where you'll use the local scan would be situations where maybe you have kids and they don't have their own smartphone, so you want to create a child profile for your kids under you, and then you scan them with your phone. Another scenario where local scan would come in handy would be if you have someone that lives close to you that doesn't have a compatible device to run the scan, then you can also do a local scan. So a local scan is kind of like the backup plan in case somebody doesn't have a compatible smartphone or iPad. You can always just hand over your phone and they can run it that way. Obviously, with local scan, you can't do remote since they're using your phone to run the scan. And that's probably one of the reasons why remote scan is the most popular options, because remote scan is not just for people who live far away. You may have scenarios where somebody lives close to you and they would like to get scanned, but they're on the road or you're on the road. So there's no way you guys can meet up. Well, you already set them up with the remote scan process so you can scan them whenever. And finally, remote signup link. So remote signup link, as you saw in the second webinar, when I went through the settings, I showed you how to access your remote signup link. Remote signup link is an option that is good only for people that you have never ever scanned before. So there is no profile for them in the app. And here's the steps. First, the remote signup link only works with people you have never scanned before. Second, you will email or text your remote signup link to your client. Third, your client will click on the link. Fourth, your client will create their own profile. And fifth, your client will download the app and run the scan. And finally, the client's profile that they created themselves and their scan will sync with your app, so they will show up as one of your clients and you'll be able to access their report. So basically, the remote signup link, the purpose is it's for people you've never scanned before, and that way you don't have to create the profile and send the scan. You just send them your link and they create their own profile, download the app, run the scan, and it all syncs on your end. Another thing about the remote signup link is that If you don't want to share the actual link itself, you can link it up to a QR code. And there's different websites that have that service where they'll let you link up a website or a link to a QR code. And then in that scenario, you'd actually be sharing the QR code and not necessarily your actual remote signup link. And then you can go from there. Remote signup link is also good for events. Like if you have an event at your house or at a health fair, and you think that you're going to be scanning a lot of people. So you can imagine in that scenario, it's going to take forever to create a million profiles and then send scans. So in that scenario, you can do the QR code thing where the QR code will direct people to your remote signup link. So you can print the QR code and then just have people scan the QR code with their phone, and it'll take them to your remote signup link so they can create their own profile and run the scan. And then you're not stuck creating profiles nonstop. So there's a place for a remote signup link as well. Now I'm going to pull up the actual app and I'm going to show you how to perform these different scans. So let's go ahead and switch gears and pull up the app. All right, so now we're inside of the app and you're going to see that there's a button close to the top right below the Visera logo that says Start Scan. When you touch that button, it's going to ask you, who do you want to scan? So you can either scan yourself, that's the top button. The middle button, the blue one, is Choose a Client. And that Choose a Client button is for people you already have in your client list inside of your Visera Link app, meaning you already created a profile for them. Or on the bottom, you'll see the button that says New Client. That's somebody you don't have a profile for. You're starting from scratch with this person. That's how simple it is to scan somebody. So let's start at the top and work our way down. So if you select Myself, that's how you scan yourself. It's going to take you to this place, and you're going to see that the default scan preferences are selected as the default. You're going to see that there's a button that says default right next to it, custom. So the one in blue is the one that's selected. And you'll remember from the second webinar that the default scan preferences are basically the settings that you are going to use the most. So that way, when you send a scan, you don't have to select everything from these drop downs every single time. It'll remember what your number one default preferences are. Now, if you don't want to do the default scan preferences, you can touch custom, and then everything is going to be blank, and you can select whatever you want to select and then run the scan. The cool thing about this is if you select custom for somebody where you want different settings than the default, it's only going to affect that specific scan. That's it. So you can change it for that person, for that scan, and then run the scan. Now, in this case, you're scanning yourself. Remember, that's the button we selected, scan yourself. So if you want to do the default, stay with it. If you want custom, go with the custom option. And then once you're ready to begin the scan, you just touch the local scan button, and that's the one that's going to bring up the screen where you make sure your face is in front of the camera so it can run the scan. And it'll give you different messages such as, hey, there's not enough lighting, or hey, you're moving too much, or you're too close or too far away. So make the adjustments and then the scan will start. And that's it. That's how easy it is to scan yourself. So let's go back to the home screen. And again, under the Visera logo, we're going to touch the Start Scan button. And now we're going to choose the middle button. And the middle button, Choose a Client, that's for people that already have a client profile inside of your app. So when you touch Choose a Client, it's going to bring up your client list. And then whoever it is you want to scan, you just touch the scan button that's next to them. So we'll do this one on the bottom that says Test Webinar. I'm going to touch the scan button. And then it's the same thing again. The default scan preferences will show up. If that's what I want, cool, leave it there. If you want to do a custom settings for this person, touch the custom button and select whatever you want. Okay, in this example, we're going to go with the default scan preferences. And then down on the bottom, you're going to see that it has the option to run a local scan. That's the big blue button. But right below it, the white button with blue letters, it says Remote Scan. So that didn't show up when you scan yourself because you literally have the Link app and it in your phone. So obviously it's not a remote scan. You're scanning yourself locally with your phone. But when you scan clients, it will give you the two buttons, Local Scan and Remote Scan. If you select local scan for a client, then once you touch it, you hand your phone over to them and they will run the scan with your phone. If you select remote scan, what that's going to do is it's going to send them the scan so that way they can run the scan using their own phone. So let's go ahead and touch remote scan, because local scan is just going to bring up the screen where they run the scan. And we already saw that previously when we selected scan myself. But when you choose remote scan, it'll do this. It'll say remote scan. You will be sending a remote scan invite to this person. And then it shows the scan preferences. Then you just hit send. And then you get confirmation saying invitation was successfully sent. And after they run the scan that you sent them, the scan button is not going to work anymore on their end till you send another. Okay, let's go back to the home button. So again, under the Visera logo, let's touch the start scan button. And we already checked out the first two. Now let's look at the bottom option. It says new client. So this is somebody that you've never ever scanned before. You have never created a profile for them. So starting from scratch. So if you're scanning somebody for the first time, choose new client, and it's going to take you here to the place where you can quickly create their profile. And I'm just entering random information, as you can see. And I'll actually enter the real Visera phone number right here. And then date of birth. We'll just choose a random one. And then gender, we'll choose male on this one. So you'll quickly create their profile, hit save, and then it takes you to the place we already know and love, where the default scan preferences are selected. And then if that's what you want, you could do local scan or remote scan, or you can do custom, select whatever you want, and then go from there. So it's that simple. So just remember, to run a scan on somebody, all you do is focus on the start scan button, and you're good to go. That's the fastest way to do it. Now, there's other ways you can also access this information. For example, down on the bottom, you see that it says home. That's where we're at. But then there's a clients button, a scan button, and more. If you touch the clients button, it's going to take you to the place where you can see your clients, and you can select any client you want. And you will see a blue start scan button inside of their profile. So that's a different way that you can scan somebody. Just go into their direct profile and choose the start scan button. And the other option is down on the bottom. If you select the button that's next to clients that says scan, that's going to take you to your clients list, and then just select the one you want. So there's a few different ways you can do this. Now I'm going to show you how to access your remote signup link. Just as a refresher, we went over this in the second webinar, but just a quick refresher. So to access your remote signup link, remember, that's the one that works only with people you've never scanned before, you've never created a profile for them, and you email or text your remote signup link or a QR code if you assign it to a QR code. And then what ends up happening is your client clicks on the link, they create their own profile, they download the app, run the scan, and then their profile and the scan report that they just did will sync with your app. So they will show up as one of your clients, and you will be able to see their report. So down on the bottom, you would choose the button that says more, and then you'll select the button that says my settings. And then it's one of the top ones. You see it right there. Right below plan details, it says remote signup link. And then when you touch that button, the blue one that says remote signup link, it'll say copied to clipboard. So then you just go to a text message or email and just touch in the blank open area where you would type a message. Just touch it, and it should bring up a little menu. And one of the options should be paste. And then you'll be able to paste it right there and send it through. So that's how you run a scan. And if you have any questions or come across any issues, please contact us. Here's the contact information. If you already have a Link account and you need help with billing, tech support, or just general support, call us at this number, option 1, or email at support@visera.com. Or if you have training questions or sales, meaning you're thinking of signing up or referring somebody, but you have questions first, feel free to call. It's the same number, but option 2, or sales@visera.com. And here's how you can follow us on social media. So if you're not doing so, make sure to do so. So thanks for watching, and make sure to watch the next webinar, because we will cover things that we have not covered in the previous webinars.